Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, this podcast is about all things guitar. Hey there, and welcome in everybody to Shad's Guitar Show. I am so glad you're joining me today for another episode. And today I want to talk about how important is music in 2026. Now, you guys listening are more than likely all guitar players or musicians of some ilk. So you would probably immediately say, well, very important, of course. You know, I'm a musician. How would it not be super important to me? But I want to drill down a little bit and see if that is actually the case. And that's something that I've been doing, myself as I'm pondering this very question. Is music in 2026 as important as it was in, say, 1996 or pre-internet age? All right, so take a trip back in time with me to explore my past. It's 1995 and I'm hearing this song Drown by Son Volt on the radio. And I'm instantly smitten. I love that song. Still love it today. But then when I heard it on the radio, it was like, man, this is the coolest thing I've heard. I got to know more about this band. Now, I jumped on Google. Oh, wait a second. I didn't jump on Google because it's 1995. So how do I find out about this amazing band? Easy. I go to my local record store, Hungry Heart Records, owned by Rick Hawley. And Rick was an amazing guy. Hungry Heart, by the way, is a Bruce Springsteen song, and he was a huge Bruce Springsteen fan, so you can put two and two together on how the shop got the name. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to this. So I go in and I say, Rick, I've just heard this song Son Volt, this band Son Volt, and this song Drown, and I got to know more about it. Do you have that CD? Well, of course he did. And while he's grabbing it for me, he makes this statement. You know, if you like Son Volt, there's some other bands you really ought to check out. And he goes on to tell me about a band called Wilco and shows me a CD called AM, which was their first release. And then he goes on to tell me about how Wilco and Son Volt were both started by founding members of a band called Uncle Tupelo. And Jay Farrar, who starts Son Volt, left that band over some creative differences with Jeff Tweedy, who went on to start Wilco. And so I go back a little further to learn about this great band called Uncle Tupelo. And from there, he introduces me to another amazing band called the Jayhawks and another amazing band called Blue Mountain, and so on and so forth. I just start learning about all this great new music, which was called or is called alt country Americana. And it started my love of this genre of music, which, 30 years later is still incredibly important to me and something that I go back to all the time. So I grab these new CDs and immediately I throw them in the CD player of my car. I'm listening to this great music, and when I get home, I continue listening at home, and I'm reading the liner notes, I'm reading the lyrics, I'm looking at the artwork. It's a whole experience, right? I'm listening to these things with headphones because I want to hear all of the music. I want to hear everything in really clear detail. And the whole process is this amazing experience. And maybe you guys can identify. Some of you guys who are older like me and remember CDs and going to record stores and buying music, you can probably relate and identify with this. It was a really cool thing to be able to do. And you know what? If you wanted to learn about new bands, it took some work. And I can remember vividly going into Hungry Heart Records and just kind of rifling through the various, CDs. And there was all these bins full of CDs, and they were labeled blues, jazz, alternative, heavy metal, whatever it was, whatever genre it was, you could find that area, that section, and start rifling through. Well, at the time, I was incredibly into the blues, and I wanted to find some cool new blues music. Well, I stumbled upon a CD cover, because that's what it was. There was a little, plastic insert with the CD cover. And then if you wanted that CD, you just took that up front and you gave it to Rick or whoever was working at the counter. And then they went and pulled the CD. Well, I saw this cover that I was like, wow, that looks so cool. And it was a CD by an artist named Ian Moore. And he was sitting on top of a Fender Super Reverb, and he had a Strat with a Telecaster neck on it. So I'm like, okay, this is like super cool. I'd never heard Ian Moore before, didn't know anything about him, but just based on what I was looking at, I'm like, this has to be cool. And I will tell you, the album did not disappoint. I was loving every single song from start to finish. That album, by the way, was self-titled, just called Ian Moore, but if you're interested, check out Ian's work on any of your favorite streaming platforms. And you can find that album and all the other albums he's released, and they're all fantastic. So check him out if you don't already know about him. Okay, but back to the past. I found so many amazing albums that way, whether it was going to Hungry Heart or when I got into jazz, going to Tower Records and checking out all the jazz stuff, learning about guys like Kenny Burrell, Grant Green, Wes Montgomery, just names that I'd maybe heard and some I hadn't, and just looking at the CD covers and going, you know what? I just feel like this is going to be amazing. I'm going to take a chance. And it wasn't always a home run for sure, but I got to tell you, more often than not, I was super excited with the CDs that I found that way. All right, so fast forward to 2026. A band that I like has just released a new album. And I didn't find out about it, on the radio. I didn't find out about it through word of mouth. I found out about it because Spotify sent me a notification saying, hey, this band that you listen to, they put out some new music. And where maybe back in 96, I would have been incredibly excited and been trying to find time to get over to Hungry Heart to get the new CD and making it a priority to going, oh, that's cool. I will get around to listening to that soon, I'm sure. And so maybe that lack of enthusiasm has led me to question whether or not music is as important to me today as it was pre-internet era. When there were less things vying for my attention, less things captivating me and less things trying to entertain me. Now we have Instagram, we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have TikTok. We're always streaming the latest new Netflix series or watching this movie or whatever it is. There's so many sources of entertainment now that maybe music, it doesn't hold the same place in my heart that it once did. And that makes me sad to say, honestly, as a musician and somebody who has been passionately in love with music for a very, very long time. It makes me sad to think that maybe it's not quite as important to me as it once was. But on the bright side, I find that my new passion for collecting vinyl albums has sort of reignited my passion for finding new things. And really nothing that I've gotten is necessarily new, though I have found some gems in thrift stores. Really, it's more about being able to have something tangible in my hands. That record that you can open up the jacket and you can, read all the cool things in these liner notes and you can see the artwork that goes into it. And there's something really cool about dropping the needle on vinyl and hearing that just incredible analog coolness. So that has definitely reignited my passion for music. But again, I go back to asking you, my friends out there listening to this episode right now, does music mean the same to you as it did pre-internet era? If you were listening to music back then, if you're old enough to remember a time before the internet, does it mean the same to you as it did then? Or have other things kind of maybe become more exciting or captured your attention more than music? And if so, are you going to do something about it? Are you going to try and reinvigorate your excitement for music? Or have you just resigned to the fact that that's just how it is in the age of technology? If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure and share it with a friend. Also, follow me on social media, Instagram at Shad's Guitar Show, and also subscribe to Shad's Guitar Show on YouTube. I would greatly appreciate the support there. And as always, thank you for listening to these episodes. Thank you for listening to my podcast. And if you could give me a rating, that would be incredibly helpful. I'm really trying to move the show forward in 2026. And any help that you guys could be would be just amazing. And thank you in advance. And remember, the best guitar player is the one having the most fun.